Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We are back at it with the latest episode of Double Crit, otherwise known as Double Critical. We are going to talk about a bunch of Legion related stuff today. But if you guys are not familiar, we've got a lot of changes that have happened. For one, the double crit is now double crit instead of double critical. We have some kind of upgraded logos, but we are now cover all of the different games. So the new logo over here is a little different than this one. This one is still the Legion specific logo, but the other games don't have Surge. So whereas just the double critical logo kind of applies to all games because all games have red attack dice and all games have criticals, and thus, but none of the games actually have a double critical. So that's kind of the point of the game. How is everybody doing tonight? Welcome. This was originally supposed to be Sunday night. So what I'm looking for, because I'm kind of in this restructuring mode. Last month was kind of the burnout month, I guess you could say, and so one of the things that I'm doing in kind of restructuring how I do stuff is to a lot of my random thoughts kind of get dumped into a weekly podcast kind of live show style format, and that's what double crit is about. And it's also an opportunity to talk about wild and crazy topics and things that are out there a little bit that maybe don't fit into like normal helpful kind of video or stuff for people to take too seriously. Hey everybody in the chat. Hey Toasty, what's going on? Hopefully you guys are all doing very well today. We are going to be talking about Fleet Troopers, and also I want to do throw a pretty big shout out to our fabulous sponsor, which is Luxury Playstyle. That we have these amazing Crabbok tokens. If you've seen my battle reports, you've seen Luxury Playstyle on there. They make amazing tokens. There's links in the description, luxuryplaystyle.com. I have a discount code Crabbok VIP. You're going to save 15%. And also, if you spend $35 or more, you're going to get a Crabbok token. Look at that. It's freaking gorgeous. It's double-sided, too. It's got the 5 in the back. So, you use those damage counters. So I've been working with them. I worked with them to help design this. We have Legion tokens are going to be coming. So that is going to be exciting. There's some really cool things about the Legion tokens that I can't say just yet, but I can tell you that Legion tokens are in the works. But this works for Legion, and a lot of the tokens they already have right now work for Legion. The damage tokens are great. I use the shield tokens from X-Wing. I use a lot of their existing tokens currently in my game, but their damage tokens are double-sided, which is really, really nice. But one of the things I thought this would be a great token for is to mark your commander, perhaps, or just light side versus dark side. You can use it to mark whatever you want. If you got a secret mission or a bounty or something like that, you can do something fun like that. But also, on the back, the reason it's got a 5 on there is because sometimes you need bigger damage numbers than just 1s and 3s. Maybe Darth Vader's taking a lot of damage or whatever. You got an ATST out there that's taking hit after hit after hit. It's nice to be able to say, let me put a 5 down there so I don't have too many different tokens. So, and I'm seeing, I wish they did Armada tokens. Yes, I know. They hopefully will get to the point where they'll be doing Armada tokens. I think I'm pushing less for them to do Armada tokens right now, only because Armada's future is a little bit uncertain until, it being like the only game that has no product in development right now, whereas X-Wing and Legion do. I'm not sure where Armada sits as far as Atomic Mass games and their priorities. So until I feel more confident with Atomic Mass Games' intentions towards Armada, I'm less likely to push towards, for them to make Armada tokens just yet. But it's a slow and long process to get new products designed and into your hands anyway. And so Legion is next up on. There's also new X-Wing tokens on the on the front there too. So check them out. Check out luxuryplaystyle.com. We have links in the video description below. And they've been a long time channel sponsor, so big thanks to them for that. They help support the channel, and your purchases using code Crabbok VIP also help support the channel. So thank you to that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Star Wars Legion. We got some new stuff coming out. It's exciting to have the Lat come out, and then the Lat Le, and then the AA5 speeder truck, and those are pretty cool. I've been working on some really cool. If you're a patron and you're in my Discord, patrons have access to a special Discord channel. I posted a little preview of a new paint scheme I'm working on. So I'm trying some new. I'm doing some terrain, some interior terrain from the Dungeons and Lasers Kickstarter. They sent me some stuff, and I had some stuff already, so I've been using some of that stuff that hasn't been painted yet. Terrain is a great way to practice painting and to practice new painting techniques, things I'm going to want to paint for the AA5 speeder truck. And so I practiced a new technique on some terrain, and it came out pretty cool. It came out really cool. It was I wasn't sure how it was going to look, and I'm satisfied with the way it came out. It came out really cool. So it's a good kind of practice for a new method. And I'll be working on a video for this. It's not gonna be out for a while because I have a lot more pieces to do, because I want to do the whole set with this new format and then show it all together. And I have a few other things I want to do with it also. But for patrons who happen to be taking advantage of their patron benefits in as far as the Discord specific patron channel that's available there, will have seen the I put a little teaser out there, so that is cool. But yeah, so I thought that was fun. I think we should do a giveaway in today's live stream as well. So I want to see what we can. Well, you know what? I have a great idea. We're gonna give away a Crabbok token today. So today, somebody who is watching by the end of the stream, I'm gonna send you a Crabbok token. So you can have your own lightsaber nunchucks. And by the way, yeah, these have lightsaber nunchucks on them, which is super cool. Whoa. Oh, it's getting some reflection, so like some of that green screen effect is going through there. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, so we'll do one of those, and a lot of times I'll do little extra giveaways and things like that. But yeah, we'll do that today, and have some fun with it. All right, so one of the things I wanted to talk about is Fleet Troopers. Now, when this show first started, when we were more of a podcast, we had done an episode. Sean and I did an episode. War Corgi, I think, was on. Yes, yeah, this was an important episode. This was one of my favorite, one of the best and also most terrible episodes ever. Because we talked about Fleet Troopers, and we talked about a couple of things. I think we talked about Fleet Troopers and Snow Troopers, and some different like expansions that we would like to see. And that's part of what Double Critical does. Like, hey, I want to take some crazy stuff that's better than gold pressed latinum. We got some Star Trek fans in the house, absolutely. It is better than gold pressed latinum. It's also better than a self-sealing stem bolt. Than a whole shipment of them, however, But Legion bat rep soon in the works. There is currently another Armada bat rep up on Patreon right now, so patrons have access to that. Well, A-wing level and higher patrons have access to that. Of course, like my battle reports right now do eventually filter out to everybody, so patrons get early access to those. And but they'll eventually be out for everybody. I have some all new patron rewards that are going to be coming. I'm not ready to talk about that completely yet. Some patrons have seen kind of some early ideas of a whole new program that I have coming out, so that'll be pretty fun as well. And that's something that everybody will get to benefit from, but patrons will have some more direct insight into and some exclusive access to. So I wanted to give patrons more exclusive things without locking viewers out of videos, like non-patron viewers out of videos. And so I found I come up with a pretty cool way, and I'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. But let's go back to this first Fleet Trooper video. The reason it was so memorable to me is because myself and Sean and War Corgi were all on for this one, and we talked a lot about Fleet Troopers, different things that we thought could improve them. And the reason I'm coming back to it today is mostly because of the AA5 speeder truck, which might help that also. But one of the things that we thought that would improve them, well, a lot of things that we talked about in that video were great. However, it's funny to me because I think back to that video and I think back to the version that you guys saw isn't really the version of the video that we did, because there were some technical difficulties in this video, and I guess I had the audio turned off. So an entire hour or two of recording got just completely, like, there was nothing. Like, I'd never made the recording. So like that night, I'm having to I'm trying to pull the data, and I'm like, that audio feed is just a flat line, and it's normally supposed to be a bubbly, jiggly, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey line, and it was not wibbly wobbly or timey wimey. It was DED dead. So that was fun. So you should check out Stargrave. It's a new skirmish game by Osprey Publishing and lets you use any minis you own. Any minis I own? Any minis? I own a lot of minis. I might consider that, but but yeah. So I've been very phlegmy today. I'm gonna wash it down with some Glenlivet. But yeah, so we ended up having to re-record the entire Fleet Trooper episode, which was, I thought, actually a lot of fun. Or it was funny. It wasn't as fun because some extra things came out in the second episode, but I felt really, it was embarrassing to me to have to, you have somebody, you ask somebody to be on your show kind of as a guest, and things go wrong, and then, it's really awkward, and it really makes you look bad. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm like, let me just do season 2 live with the audience, as opposed to having to coordinate with another guest, because it ended up not happening. We didn't have this yesterday. Happy belated Mother's Day to all you bad mothers out there, and the good mothers too. Happy Mother's Day. Trying to do my Samuel L. Jackson. I can't really do Sam, but yeah. So we had a good time with that episode, but it made me think of that because I wanted to talk a little bit about Fleet Troopers today. Mainly the AA5, I think, is going to give Fleet Troopers some more use. But is it enough use, right? That's kind of where I want to start the real discussion. And I want to get your guys' feedback too. Let me know in the chat what you think. If you think AA5s are going to be enough, or because I still think we need more. I think we need another, just like how we had a Stormtrooper and Rebel Trooper upgrade pack. I think we need a Fleet Trooper upgrade pack. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that we need to get. But for now, I think the AA5 does a few things. For one, it's Rebels had a transport earlier. Snowtroopers were kind of in a bad spot for a little bit, but hey, they had that Gav tank for the Empire that could drop Snowtroopers a little bit farther in, and all of that was cool. It gave Snowtroopers at least a fighting chance. And they weren't always very highly taken in the meta, but I still took them and had fun with them. I still, I could run, and I would run Snowtroopers fairly often, but very rarely. Beyond the first couple of waves, right after Fleet Troopers came out, very rarely have I really taken and gotten use out of Fleet Troopers. And usually when Fleet Troopers get used, at least from my experience, and I'm curious where yours differs, they're usually so weakened by the time they get in shooting range that they're ineffective, or they're dead before they get to fire. And so that much is a tough thing. And that's what the AA5 is going to finally relieve, because the Empire didn't get the same, or they got a better version way back when. They got the Gav tank that could take a whole unit. Now, and what the Rebels got, the land speeder, which could take one mini, and they didn't really need the one mini transported as much. They needed the whole unit. transport. They had Wookiees, they had fleet troopers, they had slow units that needed it. So what's going to happen, right? I think the AA5 gives the Rebels like the best access out of this next wave of heavies. The Lat Le is kind of cool, but like the Empire doesn't really need another transport, and I can see the Republic maybe getting some use out of the transport, but I don't think the Republic really needs another transport either. Although it's good for the Republic to have access to it. I don't know if the Empire really needs it. Like, they have some cool things they can do with it, but I don't know if they need it. So I think the Rebels get the best out of this because the AA5 has a lot. It's got so many more options for that the Rebels have right now with their heavy version of this big old truck. They've got all the medical options and all the support options, and then they have some firing options, and they get the run people over options. But at its heart, it's still a heavy closed transport, and so it can take a whole unit, which is awesome. It's also closed transport, so if it takes a hit, it's not as detrimental to the unit inside. So that much is pretty cool. That guy who is going to be a lawyer says, to be fair, you think the Wookiees or Mandos might be better for the box? Well, I don't know about if the Mandos. I don't know if Mandos need to be transported, but I see what you're saying about Wookiees, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about with regards to the fleets, because yes, right, that's the problem. It's like, this is good because this can finally take a whole unit of fleet troopers and drop them off somewhere. That's cool. Rebels wanted that a long time ago. But how many AA5 speeder trucks are you really going to run? At max, you can run 2, and that takes up a huge chunk of your list. Are you really going to run 2 to run 2 fleet troopers? Because fleet trooper is the second core option for the Rebels. It's a core option. You have to have at least 3 core. Now, you might run Rebel troopers. If you're running Rebels, you're probably running Rebel veterans in a Mark II. At least, those are good options. The Rebel veterans are good units. The Mark II is a good fire support option for the Rebels too. Like, those are good units. Rebel troopers are actually not bad. They have some good options now, after the Rebel upgrade pack or the Rebel trooper upgrade pack. So like, there are good options there. But what if you wanted to run 3 fleet troopers, right? Like, okay, well, I don't know if you're going to run 2 AA5s. I'm not really going to suggest people get a second AA5, although I think it might be fun. I don't know if it's really going to be necessary. But even if you have 2, what do you do with the third? Let's say you wanted to run 3 fleet troopers, and that would run a fleet trooper core list. I mean, basically, this isn't. I don't think you can say that this is a fleet trooper fix. Is kind of where I'm going with it, because it lets you. I think most people who do run an AA5 speeder truck are going to run 1. I think that, usually with heavies, the most common thing is just to run 1, and then some corner cases where people will run double heavy. But I think a single speeder truck is fine, and maybe you run fleet troopers and drop them off. Okay, that's a fix for just a single unit of fleet troopers. But there's also the question, and you kind of beat me to the punch there, is, well, wouldn't you just be better off running Wookiees? And I feel like you would. I mean, they have charge too. So that would, I don't understand why Price would give the imps a suppression token when they struggle to deal with it. Well, it's meant to be a give and take. That's one of the things that we've seen across the board a little bit into other games too, is all 3 games now. We're starting to see, even before this transition, we're starting to see some common themes across all of the games. Is that some upgrades now have a drawback. X-Wing saw this. Ciena Ree's in a TIE Interceptor, and if she kills somebody, she gets like a stress token, I think is what it is. Or there's negative effects. There are drawbacks on some of the new upgrades. So there's a good and bad in some of these things, and that's what's going on with Price for this same wave. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing more cards in the future with drawbacks, pluses and minuses. We've seen that already in Legion with the flaw cards. Anakin has the flaw card. Lando and Callus have those flaw cards. It's kind of a cool mechanic. It makes the game a little more complicated and maybe a little bit less new player friendly. Flaw cards, or any kind of expansion or pack that has a plus and a minus can be a little bit more. It can be a little bit of a barrier to entry. So probably not not one of your first units if you're a new player getting into the game. But so I wouldn't recommend the Lat Le to new players because of that. Like, you're gonna really want to run price, giving up free aims, but also maybe possibly reducing an action of somebody, or maybe that was the one suppression that caused the panic. It does have some synergy, yeah. But let me, before I get onto the Lat Le, because we can talk about that. I don't know if fleets, if the AA5 is going to be enough for fleets. Now, the good news is that you can have them kind of step out, and maybe maybe you get the right scenario where you drop off some fleets into the middle of a big enemy formation, and you were able to attack somebody, or maybe maybe you drop them off and they're able to do the standby into a good spot. Like maybe, and this is going to be very much terrain dependent, but if you can get them into a critical kind of like a little nook where they're safe from enemy fire but protecting a key route, then they can do a standby and get the free aim token. Then that's all cool. But fleets don't really benefit as much from that drop off without some kind of ability that triggers off of movement. And that's why the Wookiees are generally going to be the better option with an AA5. So, so I'm going back to like fleets. Like, fleets still don't have a fix. And the AA5 could influence different ways to have them fixed. One way is to potentially, have a heavy that gives them steady or something like that. Or it doesn't even have to be steady. We've seen, steady is a keyword we've seen before. It's not like we need more instances of steady, but maybe a certain, a certain new effect that can trigger after a move. Like maybe a free standby after a move. Like that would be kind of cool. This way they could do a double move into a standby. I don't know. Like, a big problem that fleets have right now is that they don't have that range 3 standby. So, a lot of other units that do, like, fleet troopers came out and they were supposed to be like the standby unit. Oh, they get a free aim when they take a standby action. Cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But then Death Troopers started coming out, and then all these other Iden Versio and who and all these other commanders like would get free standbys, and all these other things that would happen, like command cards would come out, like Krennic got that card that gives lots of people free standbys and things like that. And it's not that big of a deal for them. Longshot would do it. Longshot would be a great option. Frost says in the chat. Yeah. What I was thinking is maybe just a different type of change, and we talked about this a little bit in dealing with them for standby. What if they didn't lose their standby when they got shot? That might be a little bit overpowered. That could be potentially too strong. Like what if there was an option that let somebody spend an aim to keep a standby even if they got shot? So basically they could spend an aim to maybe just not get a suppression after being shot, which would be pretty cool. That would certainly synergize with them. That would also, though, potentially work really well with Death Troopers. And so, you kind of have to think about, is that, all right, do we want to buff Fleet Troopers while also buffing Death Troopers? Because Death Troopers are pretty good, so I've always done really well with Death Troopers. So that's one thing that I think about. But I think they should be more viable also in running like full builds of Fleet Troopers. I think any unit in the game should be viable to max out their numbers. I should be able to run 6 Fleet Troopers and feel like I can make a viable build out of that. And I don't feel like the game currently supports that right now. So I have another idea. And I want you to think of some kind of clown car sort of idea. But it's a kind of a reinforcement kind of it would probably be a heavy or an officer or just a personnel upgrade rather for Fleet Troopers. But basically it would allow you, like, when you deploy, you can deploy another unit at range 1 of you, but it has to be another Fleet Trooper. All right, so basically, like, when we're here, we show up in mass. So and it would have to be worded in such a way that's like when you're placed on the battlefield, because you wouldn't The idea is, the inspiration for this is a clown car. AA5 pulls up, instead of just dropping one unit of fleet troopers, it drops a second unit of fleet troopers, even though it only has transport 1, right? So how do you manage that? Well, you just have the fleet troopers kind of have some kind of keywords like, hey, when you deploy, going back to anybody who's familiar with Star Wars Armada, maybe you're familiar with rapid launch bays, you deploy, but you set some stuff aside. So it would give a certain unit of fleet troopers the ability to set another fleet trooper aside, and when you are placed on the battlefield, then you place the other unit on the battlefield at the same time. That would be kind of cool, because that would allow you to transport 2 units of fleet troopers, because you'd have the one on board, and then when they disembark, they're placed on the battlefield. Boom, you place the other one on the battlefield at the same time. So that would be kind of cool. You could just drop, like a clown car. Like, wait, how did that many guys get out of that one car? So that would be a fun thing. But it would also synergize with some other potential cards like rapid reinforcements. If you had 2 of these guys with fleet troopers, you could potentially have 4 guys behind enemy lines. And that might make up for their shorter range and the fact that they can sometimes be dead before they can, do damage. It might also make up for the fact that, most of the fixes don't really support you running large numbers of them. And this way, you could have you could start with 3 on the ground, or it also gets you some interesting deployment, because maybe you could kind of deploy it a little bit beyond outside of range, because when you place them, you place the other one at distance 1, so you might be able to use it as a kind of a way, even if you don't do anything fancy, you could still kind of follow the detachment rule and place them within a 1-speed move of the other unit leader, even if it's outside of a deployment zone. So there'd be multiple ways that something like that could work, and it would give fleet troopers a little bit of that kind of Zerg rush, boom, we're all here, and because they kind of, and that mimics, I think that's a little bit thematic, right? They kind of mimics that episode 4, they all just showed up in the hallway, really, really quick, and reinforced each other, and it would allow for things like that. So I think that's a fix that I'd like to see. So I'll call it the clown car functionality. And that would also make them more viable. You wouldn't just have a fix for a single fleet trooper unit. You could potentially run a full build of fleet troopers and have a different way to run them. It's like, oh, well, when I put this guy here, he surprises you. Now he also comes with a friend. It'd be kind of like a fleet trooper bomb. Boom, here, they're still close range, but if I can get you just right, now I've got 2 big old units, and perhaps they come in with their order token face down, right? That seems reasonable. They show up, but now you have at least 1 turn to react to them before, so you want to kind of do them late in the turn, in things like that. So that's a fix that I'd like to see for fleets. And again, we talked about stuff a year or 2 ago when we talked about fleets in this for the first time. It'd be great to have, things that extend their range or give them extra movement or something that triggers after moving, and that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Long shot would be fun for them. I'd like long shot. So that's something that I'd like to see. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Lat Le2. We were talking about we were talking about that in the chat. So if you guys are watching this live and you're in the chat with us, welcome. Thank you for hanging out. If you're watching this on demand afterwards, there's some people talking about some different build ideas with the Lat Le. So let's talk about the Lat Le, because it's a cool vehicle. I'm curious, what you guys think as far as if you think it's better for the Republic or better for the Empire. Personally, I think it's better for the Republic as a whole, because it's the first transport the Republic gets. But I think the upgrades and some of the specifics that come with its Imperial variant are a little bit better. I'd really like Governor Price with handing out aims. Even though she's putting out suppression, there's a lot of ways to potentially counter a single suppression. There's enough units that have higher courage that don't care about one suppression, or you can run DTFS or the Death Trooper named officer that or Krennic that has compel. So you don't even care if people have too much suppression. That's fine. You get a free move instead of losing an action. No problem there. I think that's cool. I think there's plenty of ways to also to mitigate that and make sure that you're removing suppression also. And we're starting to see more things that give you free recover actions too. And recover is a great way to get rid of a bunch of suppression. So yeah, so that's a cool thing. I think the best thing about the Lat Le is that it looks cool. From the photos of people who've gotten them early and assembled them and shown them on their tabletop, I'll say I wish the stand was higher, because it's a freaking helicopter, right? But it's only like 2 inches higher than dudes on the ground. So imagine if helicopters flew. Like if you put somebody on your shoulders, they would be able to touch the helicopter, and that's where the helicopter's flying. I'm like in real life. So it kind of breaks immersion a little bit for me to see this thing flying that low. And I guess you could make the same point that snow speeders also are pretty low to the ground, but those were going really fast, so I could and those did get pretty low, and with some of their tactics they did that tactically, but yeah, the Lat Le seems like it should be much higher off the ground, and I'd love to see like a rope hanging down from it with like dudes sliding down from the like that would be really, really cool. So that's something I'd like to see, but and that's an easy mod too. It's just hanging rope down from it. It'd be fun. So I would have a good time with that. But here's the question: do you think we're gonna see ever the actual Lat, the Lat TE? I think is the Clone Wars version of the Lat, like the Lat that everybody originally wanted for the Republic. That's the one, right? I feel like right now we're not going to see it. I feel like because they made a Lat Le, we're not going to see a Lat TE, right? I feel like we're not going to get one now, and that's mostly because why would they make a whole nother unit that's almost the same as this one? If you guys are just joining us, I am going to be giving away. You can win a Crabbok token at the end of the live stream. I'll be asking for people to chime in with a particular hashtag, and if you win, then you can email me, and I'll send you out a Crabbok token. So that'll be pretty cool. You put your lightsaber nunchucks and all. But here's what I think you can do for everybody who wants a Lat TE. Just 3D print one and use that in place of the Lat Le. You're still using the Lat Le as far as functionality. And then just swap the model, right? That's what you can do. We can do in other games. There's a lot of people making custom models, whatever. You do this in Legion all the time already for other stuff. I've done it in a ton of games, especially when the game was brand new, or I remember when Clone Wars came out and I was trying to do battle reports, but I only had the one core set because the core set was delayed, and I got the one from Gen Con, but everything else was delayed, and I only had the one. I'm like, oh, all right, so I got to do proxies, and I think I did like Star Trek characters for a Star Trek RPG as a unit of droids, and like I used to play test when before Legion came out, and so I would use all kinds of every mini I could think of as placeholders for early playtest games. So I remember using Dr. Crusher as like a medic for one of the like rebel troopers and things like that. Because she has her little medical tricorder and stuff like that. So yeah, like I used to proxy stuff all over the place, but you can do that now too. Like, I mean, probably not for a tournament. But for all your for all your casual play or whatever, and a lot of times your opponent probably won't have a problem with it. Only real issue I could see is if it's like a vastly different profile, or if it's a confusing substitution, right? Like if you're swapping out Anakin Skywalker for a model of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm like, well, that's going to be confusing deliberately. Like I wouldn't do that. But yeah, the Lat I. Yeah, so the Lat I believe, is the spacefaring one, and I think the one that specifically is the terrestrial version, basically when they open the doors, right? I think that there's like a minor distinction, but I had written down TE. I might be wrong on that. Sometimes when I make my notes, sometimes I get little typo errors and stuff. And these types of videos are largely unscripted. I have like 2 or 3 bullet points on things that I want to talk about, but I also take my cues from you guys, and we go back and forth on a lot of these particular topics. So, but yeah, so I think a thing that is I'm just seeing more and more of is people kind of 3D printing, ordering 3D printed stuff, and just kind of making their own units. I think that's cool for the models. I'm not a big fan of doing like homebrew specific unit cards and unit rules out in play. I mean, like, it's fun to work with them and to play with them, but, you know, like, if I've said this before, I think in my last double crit, which was an Armada focused double crit, was like, if, you know, now that the world is starting to open up again, and I actually just went out and played at my FLGS just this past weekend. You know, it's like, it's cool to get out and play. Like, part of showing up to say, hey, are we going to meet up and play Legion, or are we going to meet up and play X-Wing or Armada or whatever, is you kind of know what to expect, right? But what if you got there and like, it's like, all right, but I made all these units at home. You know, I made my own army. I'm like, wait, you made your own army? And they're like, yeah, I'm running like some Ninja Turtles and I'm running RoboCop, and I'm running David Bowie as the Goblin King in Labyrinth, and he's my commander, and I'm running the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor with the TARDIS as a heavy, and you know, and so all these different minis and Cylons, you know, and you know, and all of this stuff, and they've made homebrew unit cards for all this stuff, you know, like, I mean, all right, that particular example would be like the everything versus everything, so it'd still be cool, but generally, like, stuff like that is kind of, unless you agree beforehand, you know, you don't just show up to like a gaming day with, you know, your own homebrew stuff. But if you're just swapping in a mini here and there, you know, as long as it's a similar profile and doesn't really change the game too much and isn't deliberately confusing, I'm all for that, man. So I think that's the answer for people who want the clone Lat in the game right now, is just use the same base and use the same rules card as the Lat Le, and you know, and put that Lat I model on there, and that should work. And now, hopefully, now you may have to, like, some of the Lats that I've seen are really big, so you may have to downscale it a little bit when you 3D print it if you want it to fit on the same base. And now, because if you're using a different base, well, that's going to change its movement, give it a whole different profile. So, like, that's the sort of thing that I would shy away from. I wouldn't suggest doing that. I wouldn't want to play it, because then it becomes your own homebrew unit. You know, Scott says, I'm just using my Ewok as a random rebel trooper. You know, and you know what makes that perfect now is because you can totally do that. Sure, they're going to be really hard and hard to see, but that's okay. If it's ever in dispute, I'm like, well, I think if it were a normal mini, I might be able to see them. Okay, then use the silhouette. Pull out a little silhouette tool. Like, okay, can I see the silhouette? Yes, okay, I can still shoot him. You can still use your Ewok for immersion, but for gameplay, I can still shoot him. And that's, you know, that's a good time to use. I don't usually use silhouettes. I think I've used silhouettes 4 times since the rule came out. It's like only 4 times where it was like that close, or you know, that it was like, all right, we need to check this, you know. But yeah. So that's gonna be fun. We've got. I'm also really excited about what they're gonna announce. By the way, this is the second thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today. How many of you guys saw? I don't know how many of you guys that are here in chat watch any of my X-Wing content. There's a whole expansion. It's a Squadron Pack for X-Wing for the First Order that's coming out. It's already in hand. Like, people have been leaked it in multiple languages. It's already like in warehouses, getting ready to hit store shelves, I think, next month, because it looks like it's going out with another thing that's also packaged up that has a release date for next month. But it hasn't even been announced yet. It hasn't even been hinted at yet. Like, but all of a sudden it's just showing up in its boxes, which is a vastly different strategy than we tend to see out of Asmodee. So that is pretty exciting, and it makes me wonder if they would ever do something like that with Legion. The closest we've seen for Legion to have like surprise announcements is when they have like some kind of convention exclusive model. You know, like usually when there's like a new wave or something like that coming, you get teased early on. Certainly with the Kashyyyk Wave, a lot of things like that will leak on Lion Rampant. And I think there's another thing that's really interesting about this latest X-Wing leak is it didn't leak on Lan Rampant's website. So we didn't get a distributor leak ahead of time, which is, I'll say it's promising, but I'm surprised they haven't announced this already. So it's pretty interesting. It gets me kind of excited. I really do like the idea of like just, hey, here's this really cool new product we're gonna have. Oh, by the way, it comes out tomorrow. What? That's really fun for the fans, but it also can be a bummer if somebody wanted to pre-order something, or if you have to order stuff online, so that could be a thing. Angela says, I think that it's part of the wave that was just released, delayed to fill the gap between Fantasy Flight games and Atomic Mass games. That's a very astute observation, and I think you are on to something, because we've certainly seen that. Legion, we get usually 2 things at a time with Legion. Legion's waves are not 2 things at a time. Legion's waves are usually 6 things at a time, or more. Sometimes they're getting more and more things now because of the more factions. But they started out, they were like 6 expansion waves. But you'd get like 2. Then next month you get another 2. Then the month after that you get another 2. And so like every 4 months, they could make, they wanted to have a wave every month initially. And they're like, well, we can make one wave kind of stretch out every 4 months by just breaking up, instead of just releasing, because X-Wing used to have waves of like 4 and 6 ships all come out on the same day, and if you collected everything, you were going to drop a couple hundreds and hundreds of dollars, especially if you wanted multiples of stuff. I had days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need 2 bags to fit all of this stuff just from this wave. Those were dark days, because I spent a lot of money on X-Wing. I barely play X-Wing anymore, at least in person. Well, the pandemic does have a little bit to do with that, to be fair, but like with all the factions now too, I've kind of shrunk down just to one faction that I'm primarily playing. So, but yeah, so I think they could get away with that for Legion much easier, because they've already been doing that. Like that's the model they've already had for Legion, is just like, all right, just part of a wave, and then a month later, then another part of a wave, then a month later, like the Kashyyyk stuff we know about, like this whole wave kind of got spoiled for the Kashyyyk Wave. And that's going to be spread out. I think it's 8 expansions. It'll be probably spread out over 4 months, no problem. But with this X-Wing shenanigans, I think you're exactly right. I think they're realizing, hey, Legion has a good model of just spreading things out. X-Wing has always just kind of dropped a whole wave on a certain day. Ooh, that's going to make it a whole year between announcements at one point or more. Armada's used to that. Armada's used to having a whole year, like only 1 expansion a year. Like we had that Super Star Destroyer. That was all we got one year. Rebel players got nothing. But we were seeing the same thing happen with Star Wars Armada, whereas Wave 10 was 4 expansions. We got 1 last month. We might get 1 or 2 this month, and then maybe another one the month after that. Things are just being spread out, and it makes that huge gap between FFG and AMG not feel as bad, because you're kind of putting bookends. You're turning the maybe the opposite of bookends. You're putting book middles. And it's kind of doing that. It's like a buffer effect, right? So it is interesting, but the fact that they were able to keep something secret from like through all the different stages that would be like announcement and then factory work and then shipping, and I think back to the days of Fantasy Flight announcing a project, and then you had the tracking kind of web page where you could see, oh, this is still in development, and then at a certain point after a couple of months it would go to at the printer, and then it would be on the boat, and and then it would be shipping, so like, and then finally in stores now. And so we would always watch those update. I used to make videos. I'm like, whoa, Wave 4 is now on the boat, guys. That means probably less than 3 months before it's now shipping, and so all of those phases. Like then again too, they used to announce stuff like 6 to 9 months out. So they announced things really far in advance, and so I think they're looking to kind of shrink that down a little bit, that timetable down to, I don't know, like something to be out within 60 days. I think especially if this first order expansion pack is coming out in June, which it may be, it may not. It'll probably be out by June somewhere in the world. Like there'll be an unboxing that shows up on YouTube and of course it won't be me because I live in the United States, so that means I get everything last. And I know I can't really complain about that. I've got a lot of great things in my life, so it's just a minor thing. It's more of a gripe than an actual complaint. But but yeah, so it's just one of those things. I kind of wish, as far as wish list stuff, that we could get products kind of to everybody on the same day. And then personally, I wish I could get stuff early so I could have unboxing videos ahead of time so people would know whether or not they wanted to pre-order something. That's kind of my wish list. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I've been trying to make that happen. Looks like it's definitely not going to happen, but hey, what can I say? What can I say except you're welcome? Boy, I'm going to get a copyright infringement for that. That's Moana. But yeah, so things are actually going pretty good. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer, though. So we got this whole Kashyyyk Wave coming. Presumably the droid tank is going to have some kind of transport capability because the droids, separatists need some transport. And in the Kashyyyk Wave, we do see droids kind of sitting on top, like B-1 battle droids, riding this tank into battle. So I think it'll be an open transport. I think you'll be able to fit, a unit on top of that, kind of like the Gav. I think it'll be open transport, sort of like that. The Wookiees are going to be fun. I can't wait to see more of the Wookiees. Wookiees are going to be a lot of fun. We already got the heavy Wookiee. Again, that's another thing I think about the Fleet Troopers. Even though having an AA-5 speeder truck to drop them into battle is great, most people I think are going to choose Wookiees. And not just because Wookiee's probably the better option, but also we're going to have brand new Wookiee models to run. So who's going to have, this new wave, whether you play Rebels, for Rebel players, right? Rebel players are going to be picking up the new Wookiees, to go with their AA-5. Who's going to be running Fleet Troopers? I don't know, man. I don't know. So really, this is the way to go, is just to run the Wookiees with it. And it may be fun to run to try out a Fleet Trooper in there, but having a transport isn't really the same as a unit fix, especially when it can only transport the one unit. So I still like my clown car idea, but yeah, it'll be fun. Who doesn't want a walking carpet? No, I hear you. I don't think the Empire wants a walking carpet. I don't think the Empire would like to have a Wookiee uprising on their hands. How many of you guys have ever played Rebellion, Star Wars Rebellion, where there's this I usually play Empire, and I always never take Kashyyyk because I know there's always this card called Wookiee Uprising that just it basically takes back Kashyyyk right away. But yeah, that's and anytime I ever played the Rebels and I have that card, the other Imperial player never bothers taking Kashyyyk. And so I played that, and I finally took Kashyyyk. I'm like, all right, fine, let me do it. You don't have that card. And they got that card the very next turn, and I lost everything. So the Wookiee the Wookiee Uprising is definitely the way to go. What would you say is the faction identities of Legion factions at the moment? That's such a loaded question, but we can talk about that. First you had the Rebels and the Empire, right? The Empire was like, one of their faction identities was suppression, putting out suppression. They had a lot of stuff for that in the early days. The Empire also was the range 4 faction, whereas the Rebels did not have the range that the Empire had. That has kind of changed. I feel like the Rebels are the hero faction. They have the better hero units. They're Jedi Lukes and the Sabines and the stuff like that. And I think that should continue to be the theme of the Rebel unit layer. Like their troopers don't die, or the troopers die quicker, but their heroes kind of endure. And so I really like that. But yeah, the Empire, they've got better troops. They've got better core. Like the red defense die is definitely on defenses. Initially was a thing, but now that we also see that with the clones. So I think the Empire's kind of hallmark is, one of them is suppression. Aims is a big part of the Empire. So many people get benefits from aims, and so I like aims and suppression as kind of my Imperial thing. I still think they have the best hero units, though. Like Vader, Commander, probably in my top 3 units in the game. Jin, you guys, if you watch my battle reports, you know how many times I have to go up against Jin. Jin is actually an incredibly good commander, and I've had very bad luck trying to attack and kill Jin, because she always rolls all the blocks and surge to blocks that she needs, which is just crazy to me. But yeah, so no, I'm a big fan of Vader for the Empire, and Palpatine is kind of unique too. So Palpatine is a really fun one for the Empire, but I think Suppression is one of the hallmarks of the Empire, and then Ames I think is another one. You know, with pretty good, potentially really good alpha strikes, and then their long-term strategy is tends to be Suppression. Now, if we jump over to the Clone Wars factions, you know, I know a lot of people really like the Separatist faction. I personally don't. Like, I play them a lot. They have Darth Maul, who's my favorite, probably in the whole game right now. But outside of that, like, it's definitely like getting the AI, the battle line, like the B1 battle droid battle line, kind of in sync. You know, like having that kind of standard marching army, you know, trying to ignore AI. But I just, it never works for me. It never works for me. Maybe my brain just works too sporadically. But that's one of the hallmarks of the Separatists, is those cheap, disposable units that are the most disposable core units. Again, you have some of those elite hero aspects that the Rebels have, but they're evil guys like Dooku and Grievous and Maul. So they actually have you have the most lightsabers in the Separatist right now, which is pretty funny. You know, I don't know exactly. And I guess they have their faction identity also is that they have the most droids. They have all the droid troopers. They get to, you know, have these specialties that go along with being droids, and that the extra, you know, susceptibility to ion attacks, or the ability to discard part of the effects of suppression. You know, so that can be a blessing and a curse for you know. Or there are blessings and curses that go with the Separatists. Clones, it's pretty clear, or at least the Republic, it's, you know, the clone ability to share your green tokens. That's definitely part of that, like maybe the biggest part of their faction identity right now. Even with the loss of standby sharing, I never really wanted to use that much standby sharing anyway. It seems kind of cheesy to me. You know, it's like it factors into the whole, like, the mindset of play. There's a lot of competitive players out there, you know, that all they wanted to do is be blue player and tie you, and you know, and then force you to have to come to them. So like they wanted to win by just not playing the game. They're just like, I want to tie on objectives, be blue player, and then just hide and then stand by, and then you have to come to me or whatever, like that kind of thing. It was big with like moisture evaporators and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm like, to me, that's not playing the game. Like, I get that you can win that way, but I don't know. What's the point of winning if you're not playing? You know, I mean, I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. So I don't like the whole. I never really liked the whole standby sharing thing. I've done it a few times, but I don't think I ever did it more than once in a game. I'm not condemning you if you did it. It was definitely some of the, you know, you could do it. I never built my strategies around doing that. So the only times I would do that is just it happened to be like circumstantial, like, oh, it just happened to occur. Like, oh, well, that would be the best option for this particular scenario. Like, I didn't set out to do that. Like, I didn't try to put my guys all behind a big wall. But I think there was one game in a tournament where there was just a really big wall, and I had to do a little bit of standby sharing. So yeah, that might have been twice in that one game. I was going up against a bunch of dewbacks in a tournament in Tampa. And you know, and it worked, but you know, it more worked by chance rather than by design, because that wasn't my strategy. It was more like I had to adapt to a situation. So that's kind of that. I think, but the green token sharing for clones is a good thing. Exemplar seems to be kind of unique to the Republic right now. So I wonder and there are certain things that are, you know, just more that are just featured more in one particular faction that don't have to be. Like Danger Sense is something that you see for the Rebels. Doesn't mean it always has to be with the Rebels, but it's really good, and it happens to be with the Rebels right now. Exemplar is also pretty good, or or even really good, but happens to be with the Republic right now. Frost says, yeah, Compel with the Empire. You got 2 units that have Compel. Great ability. I don't know if that's as unique, though, because you do also have Dauntless for the Rebels, which is the same thing, but just on in an individual scale. So it's not as unique as a faction thing. It's, but there's also, era kind of things, like Surge tokens for the Clone Wars era stuff. Compel and Dauntless are Galactic Civil War era type abilities, And so, and that's certainly something we've seen in other games too. Like Clone Wars era factions behave very differently in Armada than non-Clone Wars era factions do. And like in just kind of the design philosophy, and like no duplicate defense tokens, and then have almost every ship having salvo, and things like that. That's more of an Armada specific stuff, but there's definitely era based ideologies too that kind of factor into all of that. But yeah, so it's gonna be fun. I think we're kind of winding down, and I think we're kind of hitting a stopping point. So I want to do a little bit of I want to do this giveaway, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're gonna be doing for the future of Double Crit, and like the schedules and all of that. So right now, give me a hashtag Double Crit in the chat, and I'll pick a winner before the stream ends. And then you'll win, and you just have to email me at mailcrabbok@gmail.com if you're the winner, and I'll get your contact information. We'll mail this out to you. Please know if you're going to enter and you're going to try and win, because I have to mail this to you, I hope that you would know your shipping address. I only say that because there is an astounding number of people that do not know their shipping address, and I think that's something everybody ought to know. You ought to know your own address, like the way it should be written on an envelope and or package. You ought to know your address. So take this as a public service announcement. If you don't know your address, maybe ask somebody in your household, what is our address? Yes, you should tell them why. Tell them you just want a giveaway or something like that, from this really nice dude on whatchamacallit, on YouTube. But yes, that is the criticism for the day. So while this is going on, what's the schedule, right? So what I'm looking at right now is the first, or basically Sundays. Sunday evenings is when I generally am trying to make this work. So the first Sunday of each month will be an Armada Double Crit. The second Sunday will be a Legion, and then the third Sunday will be X-Wing. So there'll be 3 Double Crit podcasts a month, or Double Crit live streams a month, and covering all 3 different games. I'm leaving a 4th slot open in case a new game gets announced that I need to cover, or if I just decide to, like, in that time slot to do like maybe Marvel Crisis Protocol live stream or a video game live stream. I was just doing Resident Evil last night. My gosh, that game is getting insane. It's getting really insane. So yeah, Resident Evil, like the lady Dimitrescu is like chasing me all around the house now, like in real time. Like, so I can't even stop and like investigate. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I can't stop long enough to think about what I have to do, because then I'm dead. So it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to continue in this game. But yeah, because she freaking cut my hand off. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, so that is fun. And by the way, totally unrelated to the channel, but how many of you guys have Amazon Prime or Prime Video? And if you do, have you seen Invincible yet? Because that's a heck of a show. It is not kid friendly, but it's not family friendly at all. It's very, very graphic, but incredibly good show. I just watched that this past weekend, finished that. All right, I'm gonna pick a winner, and I'm gonna turn around, zoom out, and Disavowed 92. Congratulations, you are the winner. So thank you for playing. Just make sure you shoot me an email at mailcrabbok@gmail.com, and I'll get your contact information. Um, you would love to have a Rebellion talk. Oh, well, Rebellion. So I did a video on Rebellion a long time ago. The night my wife went into labor. She was in very early labor, so we weren't going to hospital for a few hours. So I was like freaking out. So I said, like, I'm gonna make a Rebellion video, and so it was not one of my. But it's also one of my most viewed videos because people are always looking for Rebellion content. But I still haven't done a proper expansion review, and so I need to make some more Rebellion based content because it is a good game. It's a really good game, but there's so much to it to teach and to set up and all of that stuff. But yeah, you need to get you need to get the expansion. So that's a must buy, and not that the game is awful as a whole, but the expansion just perfects it, you know. So definitely consider doing that. And that's gonna do it for today's episode. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, did you ever give 40K a try in the end? So I played like some different things in 40K. Like I really just got the 40K minis to paint. I ended up not playing 40K. I did try Warcry once, and I did try Kill Team once. They were okay. I don't think it's my cup of tea. You know, doesn't mean I won't ever go back at some point or whatever. There's a thing for Age of Sigmar that has like a crab, like a giant crab miniature that you can have. I feel like I want to pick up one of those and paint them up. Like I wish there was a whole crab army, because I would definitely do that. So yeah, they didn't discontinue it. No, actually, I was just up at Sci-Fi City the other day. They had a whole brand new shipment of Rebellion and the expansion for Rebellion. So like those are still being made and still being restocked at stores. So yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a great day. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the links in the description below if you're interested in joining Patreon or following me on social media or hopping in Discord. Be sure to do that. It's all there. I want to thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a great day.